Losing weight and keeping it off permanently is very, very hard. And the reason that it's so hard for 99% of us is that we're trying to fight normal physiological processes that are normal and good and actually beneficial to your body, but you've been taught to fight them. And in the process of that, you're ignoring the 5 real enemies of weight loss. And in this video, I'm going to explain what those 5 enemies are and what the normal physiological processes are that you should stop fighting. And you may be very surprised by the last enemy that I talk about in this video, because it's not the enemy in the way you think it is. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician with 20 years of clinical experience. And in this video, we're going to explode and destroy the 5 enemies of weight loss. This is an obesity hack that you can share with friends and family who are also having trouble with fighting being overweight or obese. The most popular advice out there for weight loss is to move more and eat less, as if eating is a bad thing that you should feel guilty about. Eating is a normal physiological process. If you don't eat, ultimately you'll die. You have to eat. And so the question becomes, what should you eat? That's actually the most important question. Not eating less junk and eating more real food. Those are the things that are going to lead to weight loss and sustainable long-term weight loss. Not move more, eat less. That fails for 99% of us, including me back when I was morbidly obese. That totally failed for me. And it left me feeling like a glutton and a sloth, left me feeling guilty, like a failure. And none of that was true. I was just fighting the wrong enemies. It's so much easier to actually win a battle when you know who your real enemies are, right? If you're just fighting blindly and you don't even know what you're fighting against, that makes it very, very difficult to win. So enemy number 1 that I want to talk about is addiction. And there are many gurus out there in the health field that say that there's no such thing as food addiction. There's no such thing as sugar addiction or processed carbohydrate addiction. And I very much beg to differ. If you say there's no such thing as a sugar addiction or a processed carbohydrate addiction, then you are ignoring basic human neurological anatomy and physiology and gastrointestinal physiology. We human beings can absolutely become addicted to sugar and carbohydrate, and we can seek them out as a form of pleasure-producing behavior in our life. And for many, many people out there, maybe even you, eating too many carbohydrates in the day, too many sugars, too many processed flours and grains, that's the biggest pleasure you get out of your life on a daily basis. If that's you, if I just was describing you, then that's not normal. You have a sugar addiction or a carbohydrate addiction. There are many, many pleasures in life that you should be seeking out and moving towards, but eating that Hostess cupcake or that bowl of Lucky Charms, that should not be the biggest pleasure of your day or even of your hour. So recognizing that you are a sugar addict, you are a carbohydrate addict, just recognizing that and saying that out loud, maybe looking in the mirror, is going to reveal one of your greatest enemies of weight loss to you. And once you know the enemy and know its name, then you can actually start to meaningfully fight against it and not waste all your effort and your motivation fighting against enemies that aren't even the real enemy. If you would like a lot more information about carb addiction, then check out my good friend, Dr. Robert Sivis. He's the carb addiction doc. He's got a great YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link down in the show notes below. If you look in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm a carb addict, you need to go watch Dr. Sivis's videos. The second enemy of weight loss is habit. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about you're in the habit of sitting on the couch. You need to go join the gym. That you may need to work on that habit, but that's not going to help you with sustainable weight loss. The habit I'm talking about is the habit of reaching for food inappropriately. And so there are so many ways that these habits are formed. Big food corporations actually spend millions of dollars every year trying to make it a habit for you to eat their nutrient void, high carbohydrate food. Kellogg's does this, Kraft does this. So many of the big food manufacturers actually have food scientists and chemical engineers on the payroll to figure out how to hack into your private life and get you to make their food-like product a habit in your life. There's so many ways that this can trip you up. If you don't realize how powerful habits are, you really need to look into this, because this could be the one enemy that trips you up. You say, okay, I'm done with all the carbs. I'm going to eat low carb or keto or carnivore. But then all of a sudden that habit comes out of the woodwork. And habits are actually ingrained deeper back in your brain. They're not in the front part of your brain. They're not in the conscious decision-making part of your brain. That's why big food manufacturers want to hack into them. Willpower, motivation, stick-to-itiveness, that all comes from the front, younger part of your brain. And so you wear out your motivation. You use up all of your willpower. And then what's left? The middle and the back part of your brain, which are much more ancient parts of your brain. Big food knows this. And so they're happy to tell you to move more, eat less. That's going to help you lose weight. But they know in their boardrooms that your habits are going to ultimately win until you break those habits. The number 3 enemy of weight loss I want to talk to you about is cravings. Cravings are very, very strong, more for some of us than for others. But if you're someone who suffers from cravings, then you need to hear me out on this. Much of our food, especially the processed crap that can sit on the store shelf in the middle of the store for 2 or 3 years and still taste just as fresh as the day it was made in the factory, those are very nutrient void foods. The reason that all mammals, including human beings, eat food is to get fatty acids, amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. That's why we eat. We may be tricked into eating for pleasure because we're addicted to carbohydrates, but the real reason you eat is to get nutrition, to get nutrients in your diet. So much of our food that's on the grocery store shelf these days is nutrient void. It's completely depleted of vitamins and minerals, has lots of carbs, but it doesn't really have the amino acids and the fatty acids that your body needs. It also doesn't have the vitamins and the minerals. So one of the major ways that you can fight against cravings is to start to eat a more nutrient-dense diet, like a low-carb diet, a ketogenic diet, a ketovore diet, or even a carnivore diet. All the foods in these diets are very nutrient-dense. Problem is even some people on a keto diet, they still have these food cravings because the soils that our food is grown in and the grass that our meat grazes on is often depleted of minerals because of our farming and grazing practices over the last 100 years. And that's why for many people with cravings that they just can't figure out, I recommend something like Keto Chow's Mineral Drops. There's a couple other good mineral sources out there. I'll put a link to the mineral drops down in the show notes. But if you're doing low carb right and keto right, and you're still having these monstrous cravings, because usually those cravings are going to bring you back to junk food, you may be deficient in a very important mineral and just not know it. And so for many people, some kind of mineral supplement just makes the cravings go completely away. Cravings can absolutely be attributed to the addiction of carbohydrate foods. That's absolutely true. Cravings can also be attributed to the habit of eating junk food. That's absolutely true. But if you've already got those two enemies conquered, but you're still having cravings, it could be a lack of minerals in your diet, and it's not even your fault. The 4th enemy for weight loss is social pressure. Now, this by far and away usually comes from close friends and family members. And so if you're in a relationship with someone and you are trying to lose weight and they're really not interested, or maybe they need to, but they're just not interested at this moment, or they don't need to lose weight, then it's very hard for them sometimes to support you in that. And so when they grab that box of processed junk, high carbohydrate crap out of the cabinet and start to munch on it thoughtlessly, mindlessly in front of you, they don't realize that they're calling up your previous addiction. They're calling up your previous habit. That's a social pressure that can absolutely make you fall in your battle against being overweight or being obese. And so going to a friend's house and they've got their normal high carbohydrate junk spread out That's a huge social pressure for you. And then another social pressure that a lot of people don't even think about is the television. For many people out there, maybe even you, the television's part of your family. And so how many times have you been sitting there binging on Netflix and a commercial for something pops up and you immediately want that? Why is that? Is it because that food manufacturer has spent millions of dollars with ad agencies and chemical scientists hitting all of those pressure points for you and bringing up all these enemies to make you fail in your weight loss journey? Yes, definitely. But some of us, especially during the social isolation, have become so dependent on the television as a friend or a family member that when it speaks, we almost unconsciously listen to it. And so you really need to be aware of the social pressure of the television, of your family, and of your friends, and take strategies that I talk about in other videos on this channel to fight those enemies and not to give in to them. The last enemy I want to talk with you about is hunger. And hunger is not the enemy. Sometimes the way we think about hunger is the enemy. But remember I said earlier, hunger is a normal, natural, actually good physiological process. But if you've been trained to believe that you're a glutton and that you just, every time you're hungry, that's a failure of your body or a failure of your willpower or your motivation, that's going to lead you to feelings of guilt, feelings of failure, and all of those feelings are then going to feed back into the addiction and into the habit and into the cravings and into the social pressure. And ultimately, you're going to fail. If you think of your hunger as an enemy, you got to stop that. Okay? Hunger is good if it's first and foremost real hunger and not boredom or depression or habit or addiction or craving. Hunger's a good thing. That tells you, hey, dummy, you need some nutrition. You need some vitamins or minerals or fatty acids or amino acids. You need to go and eat. That's actually a very beneficial thing. But if you look at your hunger as a weakness, if you look at your hunger as a failing, then immediately you start to feel guilty and like a failure, and that's going to lead back to the addiction, the cravings, the social pressure, the habits, and all the other enemies that actually are real enemies. Your hunger is not the enemy. You should honor your hunger for the ancient physiological process that it is. When you're hungry, that never means stuff your face with high carbohydrate crap. That means eat real food until you're comfortably full. You don't portion control if you're trying to lose weight for the long term. You don't portion control. That's not part of it. If you're eating real, proper human food, you don't have to portion control because you have hormones in charge of telling you when you've eaten enough. So stop feeling guilty about your hunger. Honor your hunger with real food, and it'll help you to fight these other enemies. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments below. I want you to tell me, is there another enemy in your weight loss battle that really trips you up, that really makes it just severely hard for you to succeed? Put it in the comments below, and I'll actually use your feedback for future videos so I can help you with those enemies as well. Now, what I want to talk with you finally about is very important, and it's the combination of these enemies, okay? So we talked about hunger. Hunger is a normal physiological process. And we've talked about addiction. Addiction is not normal, but it can happen to me and to you. So, and then social pressure, habit, cravings, all these things happen to human beings. If you're just hungry, you can just eat. That's okay. But what if you're hungry and you're also craving because you have a mineral or a vitamin deficiency, and you also have a carbohydrate addiction? So now you walk into the kitchen and you've got these three things going on, not just hunger. That's more than any mere mortal can ever win the fight against. You might win for a few days or even a week or two, but ultimately you're going to fail because you're not teasing out the difference between hunger and addiction and craving and social pressure and habit. You've got to tease these things apart, and you have to feed your hunger. You want to feed your hunger. That's a good thing. That's how your body has the building blocks to make new healthy cells, new healthy tissues, muscle, organs, and other things. But if you're hungry and you're also craving and you're also have a sugar addiction that you haven't yet broken, then you're going to fail eventually in the very short future term. You're going to fail with that. No one is strong enough to fight against all these enemies lined up at once. Okay, so stop thinking of your hunger as an enemy and recognize these other four for what they absolutely are, which are enemies that are trying to defeat you in your weight loss journey. So first, I'd recommend beating the addiction, the carbohydrate addiction that so many of us have. I used to have it. That's really the hardest enemy to defeat. Once you've defeated that, and it usually takes 3 to 14 days for most of us to really break the carbohydrate addiction. Once you've taken care of that enemy and defeated it, then you can start to focus on the other three and then also start to honor your hunger for what it actually is. The next I would recommend you try to break is the habit. And I want you to pay particular attention when you're watching something on your computer or on the television and an ad pops up. Do you immediately want that? That's a sign of addiction. That's a sign of a habit that you need to break, okay? Anytime you go to the kitchen after you've seen an advertisement and grab something, they just triggered your habits in the middle and the back portion of your brain, the ancient reptilian portions of your brain. You got to break those habits. And so first and foremost, that's why I recommend everyone, if you're trying to do a low carb, a keto, carnivore diet, you need to be full. If you are hungry, you're never going to be able to fight the addiction and fight the habit. But if you're full of real, whole, one ingredient, nutrition dense foods, it's going to be so much easier to fight all these, okay? Then I want you to take strategies that I talk about in other videos on this channel about how to deal with the social pressure from your family, from your friends, and even from the television set and from the computer screen. You can actually engineer your life around these social pressures so that they'll still be there because your family's still going to be there and so are your friends and so is that screen. But you don't have to give in to that social pressure. That's when you lose on your weight loss journey. And then finally, the cravings. You got to understand your body needs certain things in your diet or you're going to have these odd cravings for weird foods or for junk food. And it's really just your body screaming out for a mineral you're deficient in or for some other essential nutrient that you're not getting enough of in your diet. If this video has helped you in some small way to understand, then please consider clicking that subscribe button and the little bell button right beside it so that you can enjoy the 2 to 3 new videos I put out each week on this channel. If my videos have already helped improve your health in some way or the health of a loved one, please consider becoming a patron. You go to patreon.com. I've got a link down in the show notes. It's a super quick sign up and you can actually join my health and nutrition army by throwing me $1 or $2 each month. And that's going to help me reach more people and turn their health around. This is Dr. Barry. I'll see you next time.